A few months ago, I took a look at The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. While Wind Waker was a very good game in its own right, it was a bit of a departure from the normal Zelda formula. Now, I've already went into my thoughts on the game, and while it was quite different than most Zelda games, I must say that I did find a great amount of enjoyment out of it. However, I'm sure that many gamers felt as I did after playing this. While the game was fun, some of us were still longing for a Zelda experience that followed more closely to the originals. Well, the original 3D titles anyway. Well, in 2006, Nintendo released for the GameCube and the newly minted Wii, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Not only was this one of the first titles to be released for the Wii, but it was also the final official Nintendo game to be released on the GameCube. This game initially released to fantastic sales and reviews, and has even been considered by some to be the greatest Zelda game ever created. But you're not here for their opinion, you are here for mine. So what do I think of this game? Well, let's take a trip back to Hyrule and find out. This game starts you off in the village of Ordon as you take on the most recent incarnation of Link, or whatever you decide to name it. In this village, Link is somewhat of a town hero, as both his friends and the elders of the village look up to him. One day, Link is tasked with taking an Ordonian sword and shield to Hyrule Castle as a gift. So naturally, everything goes smoothly. Nah, I'm just kidding. Actually, what happens is the world as you know it is invaded by the Realm of Shadow, forcing Princess Zelda to surrender her kingdom as she can't fight off the opposing threat. As a result, the worlds of Light and Shadow have both combined, creating a world of Twilight, which not only allows shadow beasts to roam across the land, but has also turned the citizens into spirits in a constant nightmare state. On top of all of this, all of your friends have been kidnapped. Oh, and by the way, you're a wolf now. Well, everything pretty much went to hell in a handbasket in roughly 3 minutes, but there is a small light of hope in this darkness. The light of which I speak is this fine lady named Midna. Midna is a creature of the Shadow Realm. However, she doesn't quite care to take over the Light Realm. She manages to break you out of your captivity and takes you to Princess Zelda, where you get an explanation of what's going on. The world of Light has been invaded by the Shadow Realm under the order of an evil king named Zant. Zant used his powers to steal the light from 3 light spirits which inhabit the land of Hyrule. It's at this point that you also get Midna's motivation for helping. Midna was a former resident of the Shadow Realm who opposed the takeover by Zant. For her resistance, she was transformed into an imp and banished to the Light Realm. So, it's up to Link to restore light to Hyrule, save his friends, help Midna, defeat Zant, and restore balance to the universe. But first he has to figure out how to fight without thumbs. This is a good time to talk about the gameplay. There are 2 separate aspects of how this game is played. Let's start with the wolf. Early on in the game, every time you enter an area of Hyrule that is covered in twilight, you are instantly transformed into a wolf. At this point, the only way to return to normal form is to return the light to the light spirit in the area. The combat in wolf form is fairly similar to how it operates normally. You can use dash attacks, spin attacks, jump attacks, and you can even use Midna to attack multiple enemies at once. But what if you need to reach a higher area? Well, not to worry, as Midna can transport to said area and then grab you as you jump towards her. Along with just fighting, you can use your spirit sense in order to see the spirits of people trapped in the twilight. Along with this, you can also use this sense to find Sentsa, which can then be followed to find either people, or in some cases, fish. Along with the spirit sense, you can also dig to get items, or enter buildings, and you can even talk to other animals. Now, unlike titles such as Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker, this game doesn't really revolve around music. However, there are times when you can use music to your advantage. In wolf forms, you may sometimes find stones with paw prints on them. Once you sit next to them, you can listen to the tune being played and attempt to mimic it by howling. Doing this is pretty straightforward. In order to change the pitch of your howls, you either move the control stick up, down, or don't touch it at all to keep it in the middle. While this really isn't that tough once you get the hang of it, I gotta say that personally I had the most trouble getting a feel for this, even once I figured out what to do. Once you learn a song, you may be able to use it to access a certain area, but most of them are used to contact a warrior spirit, who will teach you new moves in combat. Speaking of combat, let's move on to the other aspect of the gameplay, human form. About halfway through the game, you can change to either human or wolf form whenever you please, but early on you're stuck being a wolf until you cleanse the area of Twilight. The combat is basically the exact same as the other Zelda titles. You can stab, spin attack, block, parry, etc. But of course, along with just fighting sword and shield, you can use your normal arsenal of items, but most of them have a little twist. You can use your normal bow and arrow, however, this time you can attach bombs to them if you need to. You get your normal boomerang, except this one causes a tornado, which can be used to hit switches from a ways away. Along with these, you can also get a cog, which can be used to ride up certain structures, a ball and chain with a massive amount of power, which can be used either against heavily armored opponents, or if you just feel like knocking your enemies down like bowling pins, and you can even get dual hook shots so you can move around like Spider-Man. But of course, navigating may be a little tedious if it's all done on foot, so this is where your trusty steed Epona comes in. If you've played Ocarina of Time at all, I really don't need to explain how this works. In case you haven't, here's the rundown. Epona is usually at the entrance of any village you enter. If you ever need her to come to you, you can play Epona's song through either specific blades of grass or howling. While riding Epona, you can move faster by feeding her kicking her, and you can also do combat while riding. Not to mention getting in some jousting competitions. But even riding Epona to get places can be time consuming, so this is where the teleportation system comes in handy. At first, you can only teleport to specific locations, and even then, only when Midna allows you to. But around halfway through the game, you gain the ability to teleport to certain locations whenever you choose, which is good because traversing the desert is much less fun than you would imagine. Now, I am playing this version on the GameCube, as you could probably tell, so I can't speak for how different the experience is on the Wii. However, there are two differences that I know of for sure. First, the entire world is mirrored. By this, I mean that the areas are on opposite sides of the map depending on the version you have. Not to mention, the setup of the temples and dungeons are also mirrored. Second, the Wii version allows you to have 3 items equipped at a time, and the GameCube version only allows 2, but honestly, I didn't find that to be a big deal. Overall, this game should run you somewhere around 40 hours, not including any of the side quests you decide to do. I'm serious, I did absolutely no side quest, and I clocked in at 42 hours and 47 minutes. Now for the reviewing. The graphics in this game are absolutely phenomenal. From the beautiful and varied environments, to the variety of enemies and NPCs, to even the little details in Link's wolf form, this game hits it spot on. Now, I do have one minor grievance, and keep in mind, this probably only bugged me, but in some cases, I did not like the character designs. Overall, the NPCs look fine, however, many of the side characters to the story, such as Link's friends and allies, look like complete caricatures. And to be honest, I've kind of found that distracting when I'm supposed to take these people seriously. Moving on to the gameplay, I could say, at least for the GameCube version, this game controls extremely smoothly, and I had absolutely no problems in the combat when it came to targeting or attacking. Heck, this game is even much more merciful if you fall in a dungeon. In this game, you do have to restart from the start of a dungeon if you turn off your system, but everything will be the same as long as you save beforehand. What's even better is that if you die in a certain room, you will respawn at the entrance to that room, thus saving you a large amount of time. However, don't think that this means the game will take it easy on you, which brings me to my next point, the AI. This has to be some of the most intelligent AI I have ever faced in a Zelda game. These enemies will not hesitate to flank you, parry you, block you, or even try to take cheap shots while you're distracted. Now, when I reviewed Wind Waker, there was one aspect of the game I neglected to mention, mostly because I didn't really notice till I had already reviewed it. that aspect was, the dungeons, along with the game overall, really weren't that hard. Sure, later on in the game there were some challenging areas, but in the end, I had little trouble with them. This game, however, had no problem turning up the difficulty. Not only are there many death traps in these dungeons and temples, but there are also some pretty tough puzzles to figure out. So you may have to start thinking in portals, so to speak, to get past some of these challenges. Now, I'd be lying if I confessed anything other than my love for the music associated with The Legend of Zelda, and for the most part I could still say the same with this title. There aren't really a whole lot of original tracks, as most of them are just remixes of songs from Ocarina of Time. However, the originals that are in this game are fantastic. Now to talk about my favorite aspect of this game, the story. Now, this story is quite a departure from the Zelda formula on a base level. However, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad by any means. In fact, probably the best aspect of the story itself is the character development. No, really, I'm serious. Here's an example. When Midna first shows up in this game, she pretty much has this role.
Hey, listen!
And dear God, she could be a massive pain in the ass to deal with. However, as the story progresses and you understand her backstory, she not only starts to become more bearable, but she also starts to change herself. From mocking you and commanding you to do things, to being more thankful, and even by the end of the story, sorry for even asking anything of you. This development is also shown in Link's friends. This is a perfect example of people having to deal with an extremely dark time, well, literally, and coming out of it as stronger people, without having to be angsty, or dare I say it, emo about things. The only real problem with this story is that there really isn't a whole lot of character to Link. Sure, you get a feel for his character and motivations, but in the end, he's just kind of the avatar for the player that just nods and smiles when he's given a task. So, in conclusion, what do I think of this Zelda title overall? Well, honestly, this may very well be the best Zelda game I've ever played, and yes, I am damn serious. The graphics are great, the story is great, the gameplay is great, and there is even a large amount of replayability. So, in conclusion, if you're a Zelda fan and haven't gotten around to checking this one out, I highly recommend doing so. So until next time, this has been E-Dog, hero of time, hero of the winds, and now, hero of Twilight. If that even makes sense. Yeah, whatever. See you next time.